lives one day at a time. Kimmy Kim and Elations Radio. They're here to get your day going fine. Kimmy Kim and Elations Radio. Kimmy Kim and Elations Radio. Kimmy Kim and Elations Radio.
And here's your host, Miss Kim Robinson.
Hey, it's your Destiny Coach, Clarita Hatton-Jackson, with Blue Flame Moments Radio Show. I want you to make sure you tune in right here to Elation Radio with Kimmy Kim to hear my show, Blue Flame Moments Radio Show. You can learn more about me at Clarita Music on all social media, and tune in to Elation Radio with Kimmy Kim.
I talk, check the way I walk. Been set free, cause my father paid the cost. No, I'm not perfect, God just forgave me. Got a new swag, praising Christ like I'm crazy. This my Christ swag, yeah. My Christ swag, yeah. This my Christ swag, okay. My Christ swag, yeah. This my Christ swag, yeah. My Christ swag, yeah. This my Christ swag. My Christ swag, yeah. Yeah, I'm from the street. South of the arch, man, where I used to drink, roll up, and used to spark, man. Now I got my head straight, shining like $1 million. Christ elevated me, going past the ceiling, bruh. St. Louis fitted, God Squad t-shirt. Homie, how you doing? Pleased to meet you, this my rebirth. Addicted to the word, it's pumping through my artery. Faith on the meal, the swag is a part of me. Now my glow bright, soul's been redeemed. Covered in the blood, no shower, cause I'm clean. Done playing games, rid of the Xbox, almost flatline. But Christ made my chest pop, walked on the edge. The devil made me wobble. Jesus took the wheel, fast forward full throttle. Still in the hood, got that street slang. Mixed with the spirit, it's a G thing. Peep how I talk, check the way I walk. Been set free, cause my father paid the cost. No, I'm not perfect, God just forgave me. Got a new swag, praising Christ like I'm crazy. This my Christ swag, yeah. My Christ swag, yeah. This my Christ swag, okay. Yeah. My Christ swag, yeah. God Squad, bruh. Swag, yeah. My Christ swag, yeah. This my Christ swag, party, yeah. My Christ swag, yeah. Look. My whole style come from Christ, yeah. So own it, no sir, you can't put a price. Like white on rice, I got his blood on me. To be honest, I just care about my guy, homie. And if I'm only living for him, it don't really even matter what y'all think of me. Opinions, you can let them be. I'm killing it, I let them see the old me is gone. Keep the demons out my heart, then Christ found a home. Yeah. No more Patron or nitrous. I might just give God a praise with my best. He's highest, glory in here, hallelujah, yes sir. Put my trust in the Lord, I ain't having no fear. No, I don't have a care, besides pleasing my Father. Tell any hater you see, man, don't even bother, cause Jesus is my medicine. I ain't never hurting, catching waves of his glory, man, I'm Christ swag surfing. Yeah. I talk, check the way I walk. Been set free, cause my father paid the cost. No, I'm not perfect, God just forgave me. Got a new swag, praising Christ like I'm crazy. This my Christ swag, yeah. My Christ swag, yeah. This my Christ swag, okay. My Christ swag, yeah. This my Christ swag, yeah. My Christ swag, yeah. This my Christ swag, God Squad. My Christ swag, yeah.
Okay, I get it from my father. Head to toe swinging on that word, that's the motto. Yeah. Used to be a up or down flipper like the Lotto. Roll with Big Frank and ST, old squad though. Now I'm aiming at the world with that blessed scope. Hard repetition, stay flexing, holy rollers know. When you see that light shine, this ain't baby dough. He ain't got a VVS on him, what a freak show. No, but I'm close with my father though. I ain't Leroy, but the boy got a lot of glow. Took a whole lot of laying out to kill his ego. Missing my whole purpose like Shaq with them free throws. If you rap in vain, can't edify the people. Swag on 100, gaining speed, adios flow. and I'm top flow, reaching for his glory. You think I got some swag? Christ the one that poured it on me.
I talk, check the way I walk. Been set free, cause my father paid the cost. No, I'm not perfect, God just forgave me. Got a new swag, praising Christ like I'm crazy. This my Christ swag, yeah. My Christ swag, yeah. This my Christ swag, okay. My Christ swag, yeah. This my Christ swag, yeah. My Christ swag, yeah. This my Christ swag. My Christ swag, yeah.
Boom. Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome back. Yeah. Welcome back. Hey, I don't know if y'all heard this. The first time I paid attention to this one reference. That's why I like that song so much. I want to welcome y'all back to this Relentless Pursuit with Minister Sedric. But I like that song so much because he made a reference to my boy Bruce Leroy in the song. I mean, how many rappers y'all know can bring Bruce Leroy? Talk about God and talk about Christ, but you brought in Bruce Leroy. He said he had a glow. Y'all know how God does. You know how God does to you. So I want to welcome everybody back again. Relentless Pursuit. Mr. Sedric, got my two boys on with me tonight. We're going to have Chris and we're going to have Jason on tonight. And I want you to keep in mind tonight we're going to talk a little bit more about this racism thing, but we're going to have a discussion with us. I have to apologize to everybody because I had someone that was supposed to come on, but she got delayed. So if she hits me up and she wants to be on, I'm going to bring her in. She's an economist. So she kind of knows a little bit more about this whole thing when it comes to the economy, what it does to the economy. Economy and racism is kind of what we're talking about tonight. So, but I wanted to start off because you know what? Yeah, I know since I kind of had to study the Word of God, right? I'm kind of sort of one of those people. I love the Word of God, and I was reading today. I was reading a scripture, and it was James 28. Oh, man, it kind of convicted me just a little bit. I don't know if anybody ever feels like that. But if you will, go ahead and prepare yourself for me because I want to start off tonight a little bit different than I have done the last few weeks. And this is nothing new. Everybody knows I like to read from Scripture because it really kind of keeps me moving forward. But I was reading James 2, 8 through 13. And the NIV, and it basically says, if you really keep the royal law found in Scripture, love your neighbor as yourself, you are doing right. But if you show favoritism, you sin and are convicted by the law as lawbreakers. For whoever keeps the whole law and yet stumbles at just one point is guilty of breaking all of it. I really like that part because I know a number of people who like give you a half truth, right? They'll tell you part of it, but not all of it, right? Hey. And then it says, also verse 11 starts, it says, for he who said, you shall not commit adultery, also said, you shall not murder. If you do not commit adultery, but commit murder, you have become a lawbreaker. Speaking act as those who are going to be judged by the law that gives freedom, because judgment without mercy will be shown to anyone who has not been merciful. Mercy triumphs over judgment. That was the NIV version. I just want you to think about that. Because I want you to think about that because, man, you know, a lot of us, and especially us as Christians, we can find scriptures versus, I'll just say it like this. We can find words in the Bible to back us up on our sometimes biased and sometimes unbiased, or mostly with our biased perceptions of life. But this reminds me of a story that I once heard. And since I was doing some research today, I thought I would bring it to you, right? And it's a simple story. A really, really, really simple story that I heard. And it talks about the church, and it starts like this. It says, I heard about an African-American man who tried to attend a church, And said, sadly, the church wouldn't even let the man attend service. And then the pastor said to the man, because I imagine the man complained to the pastor, he says to the man, he says, you just need to pray about it. So a number of weeks passed, and the pastor bumped into this man. And he saw the man, and he said to the man, did you talk to the Lord and ask him about it? And check this out. You know, these old men, they got that wisdom like that. Babies and old people, you know, they're going to tell you the truth, right? So the man says to the pastor, he says, yes, and God said, man, don't worry about it. I've been trying to get into that church for the last 20 years, and I still can't get in, okay? I thought that was just a great story, kind of kicked me in the mouth. But with that being said, again, today our talk is simply going to be about race in our economy. You know, just want to have an open discussion about it. I have my own perceptions. I have my own things that I feel and I believe. But is Jason? Can we bring Jason on? Jason, you out there right now? Okay, no Jason. Okay, what about you, Chris? Are you on with me right now? Well, I guess I'm the Lone Ranger for right now then, right?
No, I'm here.
Oh, you there. Man, it took you a minute to answer. Are you over there twiddling your thumbs again? I'm just asking because people want to know. Inquiring minds want to know. How you doing today, man?
Can you hear me?
Hey, Jason, I got you. Hey, both of y'all coming in at the same time. Man, I'm telling you, y'all must be hanging out together. Is that what it is? No? All right. How y'all doing today?
I'm doing great.
Man, y'all know I'm doing good. I'm excited. Today, I want to throw something at you. You know, I had to read the scripture earlier because, you know what, I kind of wanted to do a little devotional, but we don't have to do that right now. We're going to do it at the end of the show. But today, as you guys know, I was just wanting to talk a little bit about what we go through, how racism actually affects our economy. And I wanted to cite a couple of things here that I've been looking at, and so I was reading today, and since I'm a young black man in America, right? Yeah. When it comes to race, I was just reading some things online. I spend a lot of time on the Southern Poverty Law Center's websites, but I was just thinking about how we do, how we've grown up. So first I want to point out something. I do realize that there are some disparities in the way we live. I want to point out that there are definitely some disparities. Some agree, some don't. Some say it's a challenge. Some say it's on the individual. Some say it's on the system. I say it's a whole lot of the system, but then it also is on the individual, because I was reading today, and I want to cite this columnist. Her name is Michelle Singletary, and she wrote a column back in 2017, and basically she said racism has taken a toll on our society in many ways. She said one is that one of the costs has been lost economically, right, for generations to minorities, and she cites that one of these atrocities when it comes to racism in our economy is that if you go back into the days of slavery, we find that African Americans or blacks or slaves, let's go ahead and do it. Slaves were not allowed to do certain things. Like some slaves were propped up. You know, they worked in the house. So when they worked in the house, of course, they had better clothes. They probably ate a little bit better. Maybe the treatment was slightly better. Who knows? And then out in the field, I shouldn't say who knows, they were treated a little bit differently. And then you also had the people who worked out in the field. Now, she said with that, there came a psychological impact on our society. And basically what it was, the way she explained it by talking about her grandmother, her what she called her big mama, right? She said her big mama was reluctant to change jobs because she didn't know if she could even get another job, right? So, and it created a strain on certain things. And she said her big mama was always concerned about money. She didn't really use banks, and she didn't want to use a bank. So guess what? And we'll get into this. there's not much wealth to be transferred over $100 because $100 in 1930 is only $10 in 2018, if you know what I'm saying, if you transfer in cash. But if you put it in the bank, it grows, right? So she also pointed out that her family also, and this is what happens in the black community all around, if you really think about it. She also pointed out the fact that when she wanted to go to college, her grandmother was like, no, I'm not signing none of that paperwork because ain't no white man going to steal my house. And she cited her family members saying, well, why do you even want to go to college? What, you think you're better than us now? Oh, you one of them uppity people? And so the economy of racism, or how racism affects our economy in the black community, affects it in many, many different ways, because we find that also as we go through life, jobs. So, and it's not so much that a person of color who has a job makes so much less than the other people, is the opportunities are limited. And so today I just wanted to kind of have a little discussion with my two partners about this, and really hope to gain an understanding of you guys' experiences and what you hope to pass down to your children, because the wealth in our country, we know, is unequally divided. And it's mostly divided by race, whether you want to believe it or not, or whether you subscribe to it or not. I mean, there are hardcore facts out here that back that statement up. So with that being said, Jason, you know, you're my analytical friend. I want to bring you in, and I just want you to jump in. I want you to, because what I'm going to start out by saying is that I want to talk about the distribution of wealth in our country right now. And I believe that when you compare black households to white households, we find that in our community, in the black communities, that most of the wealth is with the white families. And basically what that does to the black community is that basically leaves us in a very insecure situation. And some of the reasons are, as I noted with the columnist's grandmother, she didn't trust banks. She didn't trust basically the government. She didn't trust the people in society to do what was right. And so, have you experienced anything like this? What have you done in your life to keep from falling into these types of categories?
So when we talk about the wealth distribution and, you know, the economics around that, as I was doing my research for this, what I saw more of is kind of what you alluded to, and we talked about in the previous weeks, because there is some racial bias in education. You know, that's one call. You know, so a person in elementary may not get the same education in the middle school and in high school, which ultimately doesn't get them into that college to get the higher level of education. And you just kind of talked about it today, when you're going for that job offer and you're trying to get that job, and because you see the racism played out in how jobs are being distributed. Now, for me in my own personal life, I have been blessed to be able to overcome both the educational piece and the access to the job piece. So when I look at wealth distribution for myself as an individual, I don't feel that same pain, you know. And I think as we look at, when we talk about wealth distribution, I think the main part of that is the components that lead to wealth, whether it be access to education, to get that education that you need so that you can go out and get that better paying job. So now you get the education. Now let's talk about access to those job opportunities, you know. And I think as we address those issues, you know, you see one-offs, you know, and I think you spoke about it as a whole. You know, the black community, there's not much wealth within it, but you have, you know, a lot of people, one-offs, that are able to, you know, break through that and actually kind of, you know, are like the exception to that norm. So the question is, are those one-offs truly just one-offs, or is there something that can be done that same path, that same blueprint that someone like myself followed, someone like yourself followed, to get through, to break through that wealth barrier? Can that blueprint be applied and across the board to the community so that now we have that? So I'll tell you, for me in my personal life, I've been able to overcome that educational piece and got a good, solid education, middle school, high school, set me up for a good collegiate education. Got into college, did well there, was successful there, and then was able to transition that into a really good paying job. Where
okay, so I got.
money.
I mean, and that's perfect, but I gotta ask a question. You said something, and I'm hoping you just misspoke. You said there's not much money in the black community, or much wealth in the black community. Is that what you meant to say, or?
Well, I mean, this is going off what you were just saying, like the wealth disparity. Excuse me, what I meant to say, the wealth disparity in black communities as opposed to other communities is there's a greater disparity.
Okay. Because I wanted to make sure that because the thing is, even with all of the things that are going on, with all the factors that happen, because I mean, like when we talk about like kind of what you're talking about, I mean, definitely, I want to know, how has having a better education allowed you to obtain the better jobs? You said that because what did your mom pass down to you? What did your family pass down to you? How did you were able to go to college, all this, and I know you, so I know you're not from a wealthy family. So how did you do it?
Well, I mean, my mom was really honest with me, and she was truthful to me. She's like, Jason, you're going to have to work twice as hard, get half as much. And she told me early on I have a choice to make in life. I can be frustrated and upset by this situation, or I can do what needs to be done and overcome it. And she instilled in me a work ethic and a determination that I'm going to overcome. I'm going to understand that the system is unfair. The system is not right. And as I get older now, it's sort of like, how do we make the system more fair? But as I was coming up, my thoughts were understanding this is what I have to deal with. How do I, as an individual, try to overcome it? To position myself now, can I now affect the system now that I've gotten through it? So you asked what was done for me was, I mean, it was just real talk. My mom was just honest with me, and she made no qualms about it. She said it's not fair, it's not right, but that's your reality.
But I beg you had to do something else. I mean, you actually had to get out and do it, because some of the key factors that I found that continue this vicious cycle that we live in, this wealth inequality, and this was something I started learning about at a very young age, and it hit home. I remember I think I was about 11 years old, maybe I was about 11. Our house burned down, and we were looking for a new house, and we had gotten our insurance money. Back then, it was a nice sum of money. It was about $8,000, but when you go back then, you figure most houses only cost about $70,000 for a brand new home, right? So we had about $8,000, and one of the things that my parents, one of the things that I recognized as I was growing up, that my parents didn't have a savings. So the reason I said to you, Jason, is that because there were some more tools that you had in place. Did your mom teach you about savings accounts? Because a lot of times our savings, they can afford us some tax advantages that we don't get with like a regular savings account. Like I just got $500 in a savings account, which today we know that it's not that. There's also, and the reason I wanted to talk about jobs is it's really important because employment is big. That's why I wanted you to touch on the college part. It's because with education, I believe that education is the new currency. So with a good, solid education, check this out. Another way that the black household has been disadvantaged, okay, when it comes to the economy, is because we didn't have enough education to get the better paying jobs. Like we could never really get into upper management because so instead of being a store manager, we were Here it is, assistant managers. Well, how many of us know that most assistant managers at stores and facilities, they are not on salary, but they are on an hourly wage, which makes them no different from the position that they had before, except they may make a couple of dollars more per hour. And thus, that keeps them from having, again, here we go. If you make very little and you're barely getting by, you really can't afford to save much. So we didn't have access to again, much of the savings. And I tell you what that did, because, again, I'm going to go back a little bit into the 30s, 40s, 50s. We found that there was a I guess for lack of a better way, there was a market discrimination and there was segregation within the market that forced us to the lower disadvantaged opportunities. And those are the kinds of things that I kind of want to talk about too, is because the way we look at it is the less stable a job that you have, right? So you got a less stable job, you don't have good wages, and you don't really have good retirement benefits, right? And so that makes it very difficult for us to save money. That makes it very difficult for us to get our footing in this world. And so that's a really, really tough thing. That's a really tough thing to overcome. So Jason, when you found yourself in college, when you got out of college, how has it impacted your life? Like you can tell the kinds of jobs you had before, but how has just attending college and the type of degree that you have, how has that affected your life?
Well, I would tell you what I realized in college really quickly. It's not really the things you learn in college. It's the people you meet. It was really interesting. I was a junior and kind of looking into like what I'm going to do for the future. I had some alumni who graduated from the college I attended come back to me, and one of the things that they were doing for business majors in the college, they were giving them access to what they call it the management training program, but basically they gave you a company. You would be the owner, the CEO. You would do all the books and stuff like that. And then within 2 to 3 years, with the expectation that you will be able to buy yourself out and you have ownership of a company. And, I mean, think about this. I'm a 21-year-old who grew up probably, we'll say, middle class, lower middle class situation, and I've got these people just throwing a company at me. And so it just hit me. You know, I mean, I regret that I didn't take advantage of that situation because I was a 21-year-old, not very bright, but that's a different story. But it hit me really quickly that, you know, my grades weren't the greatest in college. So let me, I'll be honest with you. But yet and still, I was being offered this opportunity. And what I learned, you know, and I even tell people this, the kids I get to deal with, man, college is not about what you know. It's about who you contact with. Because that college degree and that college situation gives you access to people who graduated from the college, and they want to help the people. You see almost like a family develop, and it's a real cool environment. And I think it's important that, you know, we take advantage of those opportunities, because you see all the times where companies will say, well, if you graduated from the college that I went to, I'm just going to hire you because I know what it takes to get through that college. And so for me in my job search and my job, it's just kind of having access to different people that I would normally not have access to had I not gone through that. You know, my college degree that I did, I'll tell you, there were some things like critical thinking skills that were developed during college that I utilized. But for the most part, what I see college, and you kind of start hearing about this, you know, like the people who graduated from the Yale and the Harvards, what happened? They get jobs from other people who graduated from Yale and Harvard, and they kind of keep that cycle going. But yeah, the biggest thing I learned from college, it's not so much about what you know, but it's about who you get access to and the opportunities that come from that.
Well, you know, and that leads us to a whole nother space in the job market, because so what you're saying is you believe that there's fewer blacks in college, And one of the ways that the wage disparity and the wealth gap is maintained is because we don't know anybody and we don't have the skill or the trade.
Right.
Is that what you're
right.
saying?
Well, I like
That's
that the fact that because you don't have that education, or not even the education, but the access to those people who have the wealth already, then you don't get an opportunity to get that. Now, not saying 100% of the time, could you walk into that organization, that company, and maybe work your way from the bottom up to a CEO position? It has happened. It doesn't happen as frequently as it used to. But it's very unlikely that coming in on the ground level without any type of education, there is going to be a ceiling on your career.
Yeah, and it's funny we even talk about education because I work in IT, and I can tell you that in IT that we on the I'll say, like, let's say tech support. If you're on a help desk, level 1, 2, and 3, I can assure you, you don't need a college education on those 3 levels. Now, when you start getting up into the network engineering and the software engineering, you definitely need some good education. But that's funny, though, isn't it? Because a lot of times we block ourselves. Like I was saying, the lady wrote in the article, she was saying her grandmother didn't even want to sign for her to go to college. How many of us come from families that didn't go to school? That did not. I came from a family where my dad was awarded a scholarship when he was out of high school. You know, he had some street in him and some things happened, and he didn't finish college. My mom came from an environment where she didn't even finish high school. And she had a desire to finish school, right? And she wanted some additional formal education. She wanted to go to college, but we didn't have money for that, right? They didn't have the money. They had the money to provide a decent living, but they didn't have the extra money for college. And that's a really tough thing, because when we're talking about bridging the wealth gap, I mean, we're talking about we need access to these things. We need access to 401k plans, right? A lot of us, if you work at let's say you work in a customer service. I know I live around Dallas-Fort Worth. Customer service is huge around it. You know, you have an opportunity, if you're with a large enough company, to invest your money into your 401k. Some of us have the privilege to invest a large amount of our pay. We can max it out for the year. But a lot of people can't afford that. So they put the very minimum in their 401k. Preferably they work for a company that matches what they put in, but that's where they stay. So how is it that we don't – because another thing that we have to do, and we don't get a lot of education on this, you know, we need to be informed about our credit. How does racism affect the economy? We need to be informed about our credit. We are, I believe, and from my experience, we are some of the most poorly educated people when it comes to maintaining our credit. Has either of you guys had any credit problems in the past?
All the time. But
all the time.
Yeah, to get away from credit.
Well, what about you,
Jay? Go back to what Jason was saying.
Hold on a second, Chris. Hold on. Chris, hold your thought for me. Just 1 second. Jason,
okay.
Have you had any credit problems in your past?
Yeah. I mean, I've had them up. It's been up and it's been down. You know.
Okay, I'm gonna come back to you. I needed to ask that question because I've had some problems in my past as well. So, Chris, what was your thought?
Well, my thought was saying that the access to all the accesses that the white people or the upper class have, we have the same access. But what Jason was saying was that it's not about how much education you got, because we're just as smart as the next man. It's about who you know. So once you get into that company, they might allow you to work there, but because you're not a favorite, they're not going to show you the same favoritism that they show their own kind. So it's basically who you know when you get out there in the working class, because there's no limit to the access. We got access to the library. We got access to everything they got access to. But if your daddy already had money and he already got the company, hey, you Gucci. All you got to do is go to school. Well, my son got the education already. I'm going to put him here, and can't nobody say nothing because he has a degree. But, hey, Chris had the same degree. But I don't know him. I'm not family, so they're not going to put me up there like that. So there is the racism in the workplace and the favoritism.
And you know what? That is. I mean, I do not doubt that happens. But then, you caught me way off guard with that. So I don't know how to respond at the moment. But you're 100% right. I do like what you said. But I guess what I'm looking at is yes, we know that happens. But if you have the right education, because yeah, there are people who are going to be ushered through. But I don't think all the people are ushered through that way. When it comes to talking about racism in the thing, you know, sometimes y'all remember the days of affirmative action? I was one of those people, and I consider myself to be ignorant, but I was one of those people that said, man, we don't need no affirmative action. Because, Chris, I was exactly like you. I said, man, I know just as much as him or her or them or whatever. I'm just as qualified for the job. As a matter of fact, I got a little extra on my plate, right? And time again, I got passed over for the promotion. Time and time again, I got passed over for the promotion. For me, the thing that got me over the hurdle was my persistence. That got me over the hurdle. But how hard is it to be persistent when you got a new baby at home and a wife at home who can't work because she just had surgery and you got a newborn baby? How persistent can you be? How can you be in two places at once? You're asking me to give up my family for my job. How many of us are willing to do that? And I know what Jason just said. Jason said that he was taught you have to work twice as hard to gain half as much. But again, that's a form of racism that we have in our society. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Another form of racism. I think that here as African Americans in this country right today, that it's a systematic challenge. It's across the board. Now I ask you this, with all of the challenges that the two of you have seen, I ask you both about your credit. I've had some problems in my past, and I'll tell you my story, and I'll ask the question: how has fixing your credit, how has improving your credit score improved your quality of life? I can tell you from my standpoint, when I realized if my credit score was a 600 versus a 750, the day I realized that if your credit score is 600 or below, you go buy a Chevy that costs you $20,000, and your monthly payment somewhere around $400 a month, and if your interest rate is upwards 13%, you can go buy. Check this. You can go buy a $35,000 European luxury car, and your interest rate be somewhere around 2%, and your car note be almost the exact same. That's what I realized. That I was like, wait a minute, it's important because either way I'm going to spend the same amount of money, but I may as well get the most bang for my buck. And I know that is a very shallow example, but I'm going to tell you, in our community, in the black community, I'm just being honest, if you're going to spend $35,000 on a car, why not let it be the car you like? Let it be truly the car you want. And instead of your money going to the bank, because when they charge higher interest rates, well, guess what? That money goes to the bank. They're making that money. They already bought the car. They're making money off of your back. So your first 6 months' worth of payments is just padded money into the bank. So if you're not responsible and you lose your car, the bank already made their money. And then they're going to turn around and resell that car and make even more money. So that was the thing that made me really, really look at some things and become more responsible. Have either of you noticed anything like that in your path at all?
So I have a different take when it comes to credit and wealth. And
Go ahead.
You know, and I believe when you have true wealth, you don't need credit. You know, instead of me having to finance a $35,000 car, let me just pay cash outright. And for me, I don't know, and maybe I haven't done the research, how many people have used credit to really accumulate wealth, you know.
Oh my God!
Because we're not talking more money. We're talking true wealth, where I have this money and this is my money. It's not owned by anybody. I don't owe it to anybody, but it's mine. It's something that I can generationally pass down to the next person, to the next generation. And I think if we strive,
but what's been your personal experience with the math?
Personal experience is when I get to the point that I have that true wealth, and I'm not depending on making a car payment here and a car payment there, that I really have money. I really have what I would consider assets that I can pass down to my children and then be able to live a lifestyle. But when I bind myself through, getting a car payment here, getting a credit card payment there, and doing these other things, when I bind myself to those payment situations where now I do have to worry about my credit score, then I don't really feel like I'm in a wealth accumulation mode.
Right.
I'm just really trying
I'm not asking you if you're in a wealth generation mode. I'm asking you, how have you noticed the difference?
Well, like I said, when we talk about credit and credit score, for me, like I said, my experience with credit is just totally different because I don't look at it.
So you haven't noticed
because if I'm dealing with credit, that means that my focus has been shifted because I'm no longer in the wealth generation mode.
I get it. I get what you're saying. You're trying to make that point, but that's not the question. Chris, have you noticed any different at all? Have you noticed any difference, or have you learned from any type of difference? Whereas, you know what, I'm not credit worthy for this.
Well, I'm gonna tell you like this. I've cut down on a lot of things to better my credit because I see that credit will get you ahead. But since we're talking about racism, I think credit is still a form of racism. And when I say that because Donald Trump, he's already made this economy worse. But on the good side, Donald Trump got money. So do you think when he go to that car dealership, they going to ask somebody's credit? No. That's what Jason
he's doing like Jason
said. If I got the money, it ain't even about credit if you got the money. Donald Trump already got the money, so they not looking at his credit. They looking at me because I don't have his money. Well, how's your credit? Man, I might have $50,000 in the bank. I might can buy that car, but you ain't even asked me about that. You trying to check my credit before anything but Donald Trump because he Donald Trump. You ain't even checking his credit. Or Donald Trump, what you want, Donald Trump? There you go. You ain't worried about his credit. And that's where the disparity of the racism is in America today.
Okay. So I want to go back to Jason real quick. Jason, you were making a point that you said if you're using credit that you're already in your mindset is already off, because it brings me to this next statistic that I looked up, and basically what it says the median wealth for black households with a college degree equaled about 70% of the median wealth for households that were white. Check it out, without a college degree. How do we apply your principles? How do we apply the principles to close this wealth gap? I know we're not going to get to all of it here on an hour-long podcast, but how can we continue to narrow this wealth gap that we have?
So, and like I said, when we were talking about a little earlier, we got to understand where the wealth gap is created. And I truly believe the wealth gap created on the front end with access to education, and then secondly, access to job opportunities. Now, once we overcome those two factors, and we talked about that the last couple of weeks, it's now like, all right, now that I do have access to this money, where is my mindset? And if we're trying to close a wealth gap, we got to talk about how to generate wealth, and then talk about what avenues do I have to take to generate wealth. And I think, in what I've seen a lot of, I've been blessed to have access to. The school I went to was a really upper class school. I mean, it was some of the elitist people coming out of the southern states. And when I talked to them, about what their parents were teaching them, their parents weren't teaching them how to manage a credit card bill. Their parent was teaching them how to invest in the stock market and read those 20-year rows. Where to put your money to get the most return on. So I think what we have to do is we have to get in the mindset of how do I create wealth and how do I maintain that wealth? And that's what we have to start teaching each other. Once we get that knowledge and information, we have to start teaching that within the community to start bridging that gap. But until we overcome the education, the access to education, and the access to jobs, then we're still going to be behind. Because today, I've seen it in my real life. I've seen people who, if you don't know how to manage money, then it doesn't matter how much money you have. So if you are bad with managing money, whether you have $20 or $20,000, you're still going to be bad with managing money. And so once we get that, once we bridge those gaps and close those opportunities, then we need to be working on how do we educate our community about how do we really truly generate wealth and then grow it. And like I said, to the point where when I get older, my grandkids, I can say, hey, here's my will to my grandchildren. I leave this part of my wealth to you because I've generated it so great that I can do that.
And that's a very important part because what we don't do, like what you were saying, Jason, I totally live by that part. I agree 100%. But since we have fewer assets, so I think that our focus should be, and this is what I talk to my kids about even now, what our focus should be at this point, if we want to bridge the wealth gap, I think one of our focuses should be land ownership. Am I right? Jason, your mom owns her house, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so nobody's going to come and serve her with some eviction papers. If somebody wants to come through the neighborhood and develop the neighborhood, she has to sell that property. They have to buy that property from her, right?
Right.
Or if, God forbid, if something happens, she leaves that part of her to you and your sister, and you guys can choose to keep it as an asset, or you can sell it, split the profits, and go buy other stuff. Am I right?
Right.
And that's why I hate that my financial lady's not on, because she was talking to me about things like this, because it's imperative in our communities that we start to purchase these things. We start to learn how to navigate these things, because we don't want to just go to work. We don't want to just go to work to be going to work, just because we want our money to work for us at some point. Like you said, Jason, we don't want to go spend all of our money financing cars. But the example I was putting out there was that, you know what? Unfortunately, in this world, we got to have a car. You can go buy a cash car, and that's great. But what if your job requires you to travel a lot? What if you're driving for Uber to make that money? You know, sometimes it's beneficial to finance, because not everybody can save up $25,000, $35,000, and now with the price of cars today, $35,000, $40,000. But one point I wanted to make, and you were talking about how you try to stay away from credit, Jason, is the example that I used is definitely an example, because $35,000 is $35,000 no matter what. But the thing I think we missed was when I was talking about credit, I was actually talking about one is $35,000, but you're paying 13% interest on it. The other one is $35,000 and you're paying 1.9% interest on it. Another problem we have in the black community is that, believe it or not, guys, in the black community, when you compare it to an age group, I believe the age group was between 47 and 65, the average amount of debt owed is less in the black community. The black community generally owes only about $35,000 in debt, whereas the white community owes over 40, right? Over 40,000. The problem with that is the interest rate in the black community is so much higher than the interest rate in the white community. Ain't there something? And that's why I wanted to point that out, because that is crazy. And now, Jason, you already got into the wealth accumulation, how we actually get there. How do we actually realize that, you know what? Yes, the system can be set up, and for so many years, and I will say this, I believe that the reason the black community is in the state that it's in is because of the systematic oppression of the community for so many years. I hate to say it to those of us who believe that we can just pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and make everything better, but I'm going to tell you, this goes all the way back to the days of slavery because of the mentality. And people say, well, how can you go all the way back to slavery with this? This is you guys' mentality. No, this was a learned thing. This thing was learned. Or I was telling you about the article that I read from 2017, and one of the things she said about her grandmother was that she said, "I'm not going to let the white people take my house." You see, when slavery was what it was, there were some people who got all the perks, or who seemed to be getting perks. Now here we go. Then that created a certain type of resentment. Now, just because slavery ended and Jim Crow started and all this other stuff, the same mentality continued to be passed down. So I believe that one of the things we have to do today, right here, right now, is to start to dispel that nonsense. Because, Chris, you were talking to me earlier today, and what were you saying about black business owners with black customers? Can you tell everybody what you were talking about?
The black business owner.
Yeah.
He's gonna treat his own very different from the white man treating you. You can go and work for a black owner, and because he thinks he's already there, but you haven't made it, you will pay your people less money than the white man will pay me. So therefore, you treat me bad. And, you know, it happens, and that's the way of the world. But the one main thing I want to say before we get off this show tonight, you just got through talking about slavery.
Okay.
The white man is still slaving us. For me to get my credit better, I have to pay him to help me get my credit, because if I go put $20,000 in the bank and John White, he go put his $20,000 in the bank, well, for some reason he got access to help his money grow, but I don't. I'm sitting here looking online, looking at Bitcoins and stuff, and I'm losing money. But he already, it always go back to who you know. He knows somebody. He ain't finna tell me.
Well, Jason, what's your big word, that one word that you said you had to go off to an affluent school to get? What was that one word?
Was it access? What do you mean?
Education. Chris, I think the answer to what you just made is education. Because I'm going to tell you something. Your money, if you invest 200 shares in the J.P. Morgan Chase and Donald Trump invests in 200 shares of J.P. Morgan Chase, guess what? Y'all going to make the same amount of money. No matter what your skin color is. I'm sorry. Now, you got to trust your advisor, but I'm just saying. But
you're right.
But
I don't know the same people Donald Trump know. I don't come from the same neighborhood he comes from, so I don't know the same people. I'm just going on, well, I invest my money in the same bank he did, but that don't mean I got access to the same people that he has access to help his money grow.
But check this out. This is the one thing that I personally, I agree with what you're saying, but I can't agree with it. Some of this is personal, and one of the ways that we can close the wealth gap in the black community is like what Jason was just saying. It's education. The reason why the wealth gap has grown so big is because we didn't have access. But today, this is 2019, we have access. The problem we have is we don't have the right education, meaning I'm not a stockbroker. I don't know how to invest my stocks. I've got to get a trusted broker who's going to manage my money. I got to get a good money manager who's not going to skim off the top, like, i.e. Bernie Madoff. I don't want him. I want the guy who's going to help my money reproduce. I need jackrabbit money. And we can't do that with a certain type of mentality. And as far as I believe, when it comes to the black business owner, I think as a black man in business, I need to treat my clients, everybody to me, honestly, and I know this is going to be crazy because I'm kind of like a stockbroker in this sense. The more money you spend, well, you know, the more access you have to me, right? That's just because it's all money driven. But I will not treat a client who's only spending $75 any worse or better than what I would treat a client who's spending $75,000. Now, here's the problem. Another thing that I think a myth that we should dispel is that the myth that I want to dispel in black businesses is that, man, when y'all come into a business, don't treat my black-owned business like it's your mom and daddy's coffee shop. Don't come in here asking for discounts. That's just one of those things that I've run into. But I think on the serious note is that I believe that even that in itself, Chris, to think like that, that's one of those leftover, that's one of those residual feelings from Jim Crow. Because I believe that black business owners as well as patrons, I don't see why we don't treat each other exactly the same. And I've been under the gun, and I've been mistreated by some black owners. I'm not going to tell you I haven't. I'm sure that there's some people out here who complain about me and say, well, this guy didn't treat me good. But I can vouch for me that I did what I had to do. But another one of the things that we want to close on is that when we're talking about bridging the gap, the wealth gap, and these are things that I have personally experienced and I have personally read about. I can tell you that I believe that land ownership is a big, huge plus. Cash flow. You know what? When we start investing in stocks, when we start investing in our 401ks, our life is, man, there's this book, one of the owners of a company that I work for, he gave me this book, and I've been reading about it. And it was about how the Rockefellers, how they buy life insurance policies, right? And they don't use the term life insurance. No, they buy whole life. Why? Because that translates into cash dollars. When your kid turns 21, 25, that's cash money. Everything that you put into that, that's cash money. You can use that money for anything you want. You can take a loan against that money, right? And it still shows that that's the money you have, and you put the money back. So cash money. I think that in our community, we are severely lacking in how we can truly make wealth. Now, making money is different. You know, we got a lot of drug dealers on the corner who come up, right? They come up. They can buy brand new cars and pay cash for them. They can wear $2,000, $3,000 earrings and gold chains. That's not wealth. That's just money.
Can I say
spent.
one thing?
You sure can.
Okay, you just said a mouthful. Right before you said all of that, you said something in the beginning. You said, I'm not going to treat him the same way because if I put $500 in your bank and this guy come over and put $5,000 in your bank, why would you treat him different than you treat me?
I don't think that's what I said. I think that the person who spends, I think I said the person who spends the most has more access to me. I'm not going to treat them differently. They have more access. That's all.
But we notice that the banks do that, right? If somebody come in the bank, they'll skip them to the front of the line because this man got less money in the bank, but I still got money in the bank. Why are you treating me different because you're making money off my money?
And that's a really good point, Chris. That's a really, really good point. I was only talking about for business I do, but that's a really good point. That happens to us. But does that equate to racism?
I wouldn't say directly. No, I wouldn't say directly, but I hear what Chris is saying, and Cedric, you just said your access to the person is going to be dependent on how much you spend. Now, the reality is this person, the person next to me, is going to be able to walk into the door with more money than me because of at least what I believe what we talked about before, because they had access to a higher education, they got access to a better job. So now we may be sitting at the same age, you know, with the same similar background, but because of those opportunities that he has more money walking in through the door than I have. Because I'll tell you this,
and walking
through the door. Once you get there, once you get to that bank, all they see is green. So if you have $50,000 and the next person has $50,000, y'all gonna get treated the same. Y'all gonna get the same level of access. Now, if you had 50 and that other person only had 100, there is going to be a difference, you know, and you will get the better level because you have the more money. But once
so that's where I was going to go with that. Go ahead.
Once you get into those institutions, most of those financial institutions, you don't see, all they see is green. And there is a disparity. I mean, I'm not going to lie that, you know, the people who have more money in the bank, they get better checking accounts, get better benefits, they don't have to worry about fees and stuff like that because they have more money in the bank. But I'll tell you, at one point I had I had some money in the bank, and I got access to that level of treatment. So I would tell you, at least from that perspective, I don't see any racial disparity, in the sense that if you're a black man with 50,000, if you're a white man with 50,000, if you're a Chinese with 50,000, you got 50,000. The bank's going to treat you the same.
And I totally agree. And that was why I used the word access. Don't we want access to all these things? Chris, you referenced Donald Trump. I personally like to reference Jeff Bezos, right? Because he's only the richest man in the world, right? I mean, he lost more money in one day than 10 generations of my family have earned in 100 years, right? But anyway, you have a level of access when you can come to the table with cash in hand, with assets in hand. When you come to the table with something of value, you have access to a broader scope of I don't know, opportunities. That's the word I'm looking for. You have access to broader opportunities. So I think one of the ways that we can start to bridge our wealth gap is to seize on these opportunities we have, or create opportunities for ourselves in our community. Because, Chris, you're a vet just like I am, right? You're a vet. You get disability, right? And you have some opportunities available to you that maybe you haven't taken. Maybe you have. I don't know. But we need to use every opportunity in our communities of color to bridge this gap. And bridging this gap, it's not a competition. What it is it's leveling the playing field. We need access in our communities just like the other communities. Yes, our houses don't cost as much as those. Like, we don't have $2 million houses. But guess what? How many people can buy a $2 million house? So their community consists of 30 houses. Our community consists of 130. When you put that money together, that's where it is. That's where there's power. When you start to patronize certain types of businesses, yes, that means that the guy who owns the grocery store on the corner is going to make more money than me, but I'm patronizing his business. His business grows. He keeps his money in the community. We help each other out, and we learn from these people. We be friends. The pharmacist on the corner, he's a guy who's doing pretty good, right? You know, when you go on a fishing trip, he says, hey, Jason, remember you said it's not always what you know, but who you know, right? So you know this pharmacist who's invested heavily with this other broker, and you guys are on a fishing trip together. You get to pick each other's brains, and you get to make those friends. You get to make those connections. And what I'm seeing with us as black people as a whole, those are the kind of connections we have to do. We have to educate ourselves. If that means going to college, going to a university, if that means getting a PhD, fine. You go get that. If that means going to a trade school and learning everything you can through a trade school and getting a better paying job so that your kids can have the opportunity to go to school, I say we do that. But at the same time, we make sure financially we're in order. Because, Jason, you made the greatest case ever to me, right? Your case was simple. You know, the more you know. And that's what we have to do today. And I think that's going to really, truly start to bridge the gap for us as people of color, as black people in America. Being black in America ain't easy. Now, that doesn't, and what that does, and check this out, this is the crazy thing. The more successful we become as a people, as a whole, right? Yeah, in the beginning, I'm sure that we're going to see a bunch more racism, but how many of us have ever seen a room full of black executives, all right, in their three-piece suits and their custom-made dresses and their high-heel shoes? And how many of us have ever seen that in our lives? I encourage you to go up to Maryland, and I'll have to get the name of the event. But, man, I can never tell you exactly how wowed I was. And it wasn't that they were so intelligent. It wasn't anything. I stood back because I wasn't invited. I just want y'all to know I wasn't invited. But I got to see these people, and I thought, wow, I got to see some successful black people who were doing something positive. And I think that if we just adapt that and we apply the same principles that other races apply, that we'll get the same benefit. The Chinese who came to America, they were a very small group. As a matter of fact, look around your neighborhood. They're still a very small group. But they focus on what? When they're in school, they focus on education. And I think that that's the key to bridging the gap, the wealth gap, because once you get out of college, you do have to learn how to manage your money. Once you get out of high school, somebody needs to teach you, okay? So we're coming towards the end of the show, and I started it out. We were talking about racism. I know we didn't get too deep into it tonight, but keep in mind, sin is sin, and all sin goes against God. And I definitely want to push that point home. It all does. So being in a tremendous amount of debt, I believe, is a sin. I believe it goes against the teachings of God. It goes against the Word of God. So we don't want to get ourselves bogged down in debt. Hey, Chris, Jason, either one of you want to have any closing remarks? Hit me with a tidbit that I can take home and study.
No.
I would like to say we came a long way.
Go ahead.
Oh, my bad. I just wanted to say we came a long way, and we still got a long way to go.
Came a long way, got a long way to go. Jason, you was good, right?
Yeah, I was just saying, I think you hit the key word, assets. And that's what we need to try to find, how to get assets to try to bridge this wealth gap. Thank you.
Right. So our relentless pursuit for the next 5 years is we're gonna try to bridge this wealth gap in our own lives, right? We're gonna try to find something we love, and we're gonna pursue that thing that we love, and then we're gonna embrace the change that it causes in our lives, right? And that's gonna be for the next 5 years. That's gonna be the relentless pursuit in our lives. I tell y'all what, man, I got a partner. Y'all know I talk about him all the time, but Charles is on. Charles McCutcheon, and I'm gonna see if he can. I'm going to see in November, I know I talked to you guys about it in November, I'm going to make sure we attend his seminar, because his seminar is fire, it's good, and it teaches about this very thing, okay? So, you know what we say at this point in time, we're getting ready to get out of here, but find something you love, chase it, embrace it, and that is your relentless pursuit. Y'all have a good weekend. Until next week, I'll see y'all later. God bless you. And Sister Kim, can you go ahead and bring our music? What a beautiful weekend. Otherwise, I'm going to start singing.
Blood Brothers. The Jewel. David Benton. Beyond a fence in a building. This is what y'all want? Yeah. You gon' get it. It don't bother me. Hey, no. It don't bother me. Taking home. It don't bother me. Running on. It don't bother me. Running on. It don't bother me. Hey, no. It don't bother me. Taking on. It don't bother me. Running on. It don't bother me. Running on. I ain't worried about it. 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 13 years in the bed and people let me for dead. Hit the weight, piling red, cause I'm a thoroughbred. Every word that I said I kept. You slept on me, the government stepped on me. My homies just left on me. Nobody but mama dirt, daddy stressed, kids too. You would know what I've been through if you did a bit too. Don't think that you know me, cause we went to the same school. Showing you chain gang and B came a dang fool. I ain't cool, but still I don't blame you. I'm not the same dude. I'm winning, you can't lose. Never been gangster or thug, but I did pop a slug when I was selling drugs in the slum. On the east side of Knoxville, homies they got killed. Just because I'm not a killer don't mean that I'm not real. God told me my purpose, I was nervous and got chilled. Survivor, striving, that's why I'm not bothered. It don't bother me, hey, no. It don't bother me, taking home. It don't bother me, running on. It don't bother me, running on. It don't bother me, hating on. It don't bother me, taking on. It don't bother me, running on. It don't bother me, fronting on. I ain't worried about it. 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 I got haters on haters. I got haters for haters. I trade haters for haters. They hated the haters. You ain't getting no papers. See you later, say haters. Yes, I'm a so taker. Yeshua, come save us. Y'all haters keep talking and talking and talking. More talking ain't gonna do nothing. You just keep on walking and walking. More talking ain't down for no sparking. Can't roll with the chosen, so you should go pocket. Oh, you really ain't about it. You just like the music. Oh. Get up out of the way, let the jewel go on and do it. Oh. This ain't a dream, I was put on a scene, feel a steam with a smack in my hand. Oh. You think you can judge me, this clay, this vessel got soldier, this man? Oh. I stand on
the rockin' is heavy and steady, that's right that I stand. I'm telling you, fam, ain't choose to do this, so this all I got planned. No, I don't care what you talking about. Low-key capping what it be about. I hear the devil coming out your mind like no, we don't play cause we're from the south. Too blessed to be strapped, we don't even care what you talking about. It don't bother me, hey, no, it don't bother me, faking home. It don't bother me, funny, no, it don't bother me, funny, no, it don't bother me, hey, no, it don't bother me, faking, no, it don't bother me, funny, no, it don't bother me, funny, no. I ain't worried about it, I ain't worried about it, I ain't worried about it, I ain't worried about it.